Professor Peter Baofu. He is an American visionary and author of so many books and articles, 179 of them. Mostly his work is characterized by challenging the conventional wisdom, and he's traveled in so many countries in Africa and of course across outside Africa. He is the person that I have in my program speak out today, and we'll talk about different issues that are affecting Malawi, Africa, and globe at large. And we'll be talking about different issues in our program today in the Speak Out. Welcome to the program, Professor.
Thank you for inviting me.
I don't know if my short introduction has done it all, but maybe you can elaborate more about your background. Who are you and what have you done in terms of your academics, in terms of your professionalism?
As you have said eloquently, I am an American visionary and author of 179 books and many other articles in all fields of knowledge in relation to the mind, nature, society, and culture, which means that I have written in all fields of knowledge, the social sciences, the natural sciences, the humanities, and the formal sciences, ultimately for some unified theories of everything. And I have been in more than 132 different countries by now as part of my global tour. And by the end of this project, I should be in more than 150 or 60 or 70. That means that's not much for me to go. And I do this because I want to understand humanity on the ground, not just by reading a book in a library, which is very easy for me to do, but it doesn't give me any face-to-face interaction with people and societies on Earth. And I do that because I want to provide some realistic solution to global problems affecting all humanity, not just one culture, one society, and one history. And I have provided so far more than 145 different new visions and theories of the human future. And in that regard, I have been interviewed all over the world about my visions and my solution to global problems. So that's just a very short summary about what you said, but in a very elaborate way.
I think that's a long one as well, but thank you very much for your time, and welcome to Malawi.
Okay, thank you.
We want to talk about different issues, as I said, and we will engage you. Let me just tell my viewers and my listeners that the thoughts that will be said in this program are not necessarily those of MBC or the producer, but they are the thoughts of Professor Baofu. Some of the things that he will say in the program might be sensitive, but I think he will talk about hard teachings in this program that I want you to brace, and I want you to understand whatever point that he will say. As I said, they don't in any way represent his views, don't in any way represent the views of MBC, but I want to tap knowledge from him, tap wisdom from him. One of the things that I want us to start with in our discussion, Professor, is about work ethics. You've been in Africa, you've been in Malawi for some time. How do you think work ethics can derail or can help to develop a country? And what have been your thoughts about Malawi, or about sub-Saharan Africa, and about us people in Africa, on how we work and how we think this work ethic can help to develop the countries?
Work ethics is certainly one of the major issues confronting development in any country and culture. The problem with work ethics in some way is one of the larger problems about corruption. And there are many different aspects of corruption, but maybe we can talk about 2 or 3 of them, and work ethics is one of them, and then maybe we can talk about some other issue, political divisionism, tribalism, and all that. Those are also part of the larger issues about corruption. Let's talk about work ethics first then. In the case of Africa, I would like to focus on sub-Saharan Africa, which means black Africa. I'm not going to talk about white Africa, let's say the white population in South Africa or the Arabic people in North Africa, those are not blacks, they are Arabic people. And I'm not going to mention about the Asian Africans, like some of the Africans, they live in Madagascar or in Mozambique or Tanzania, some of them are Asians. I'm not talking about them. Let's focus on the black population in Africa, which is the majority of the population in Africa.
Yes.
One of the distinctive things that I have observed time and again when I visited Africa, and also some of the black communities in Latin America and the Caribbean, for example, you also have quite a number of black communities in those societies too. And one thing that I have observed is about the notion of what you just said. It's about the joy of life. There is a mindset about the joy of life, and which has some important implication about work ethics, because one thing which is very distinctive about blacks in this case is the notion, the mindset of a joy of life, that they like to enjoy life. That's not the problem, but with minimum work.
Okay.
Now that...
What do you mean by that?
That's what I'm trying to elaborate right now. The blacks on average, in this case in Africa, they like to enjoy life, but they want to get what they want in life, but with minimum work, effort. So the contrast of that, of course, it's just the opposite pole of that conversation is like those in China or Japan or South Korea. You have the work ethics and they work too much, to the point that some of those people commit suicide because they're so stressful. This kind of work ethics, they work day and night, work. I have interviewed some people in Africa before. I visited some factories. I spoke to some managers and factories and some other highways projects and all that. And I remember, for example, one example is I spoke to a Chinese supervisor in Mozambique and Tanzania too, when they work on some work project. So at one point I asked them, because they came to those countries and supervised the project, I asked them, can you tell me some of the differences between, let's say, a Chinese worker coming to Africa and work and a black African working here, the local worker? And he told me that you can see that for yourself. And then he pointed out to me about how people work. He said, look, when they work, they talk a lot. In a factory, for example, if you go to China or Japan or South Korea, you go to a factory or go to any place which people work, they tend to be much more quiet, and they are very concentrating in what they do. They don't talk too much, and they don't want to joke around. Among the black population in Africa, for example, when they work, they like to talk a lot. And when they work, they look at something, but they will look around just like this. They don't focus like this and work on that concentrating. In a few minutes, they will look up and they will walk around and they will start talking to someone. And sometimes they joke with each other. And sometimes if they listen to some music, they will dance at the same time too. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that that is a choice of life. If that's what you want, fine. But remember, there is a trade-off. The trade-off is that you may not earn that much, you will not produce that much, and you may not get so much in life. When I asked that guy that I told you about in the example, I say, so how many hours do they work? He said that the Chinese workers, when they come to Africa, sometimes they even stay in the factory. They sleep in the factory.
Yeah, because they get a lot of money there.
Yeah. So
maybe they get a lot of money.
Well, that is the compensation, because many of them wake up early in the morning. They start working. They work until late in the evening, even late at night, even when all the workers are gone. I mean, I'm talking about the local workers. The local workers, they often come, when they come late. And they have a lot of story a lot of excuses why they are late. The traffic, or they have some problem and all that. And then when they leave early, or they leave on time. By the time it's 5 or 4, whatever is the end of the workday, they just rush to the gate already. Many of the Chinese workers, they are still there until the evening. Of course, they get paid more because you work more, you produce more. So I'm not saying that you should behave like that. I'm just saying that there is a consequence. The consequence is that many of these people do not enjoy life as much as the black local workers.
Okay.
Okay. In those countries, in Japan, in China, in South Korea, you have some people, they commit suicide because life is so stressed. Work is too much. That's why the East Asians are notorious in terms of work ethics. It's not that they don't have work ethics, they have too much, too extreme. Okay, there's a red race over here. Everyone is competing with someone else in an office. Who is going to work until the latest hour? No, everyone is afraid to leave first. Everyone is competing with everyone. Who is going to be the last person to leave the office? Now, it's just the opposite. So I'm not saying that you should behave like that. I'm just saying that we are on TV over here in Africa. You asked me the question, I compared that with you. I'm not saying that you should copy the Chinese, you should behave like the Chinese or the Japanese. Conversely, when I'm on TV in those countries, I'm not asking them to behave like black Africans also. I just tell you, compare with Africa, they are much more joyful. And you are not. You are too stressed here in your work. So which one do you go? What's the balance? It's up to you to choose. My job as a scholar is to tell you the problem and the consequences, but I cannot tell you what to do because that's up to you to choose. Apples and oranges. Do you like apples? Do you like oranges? Or do you like both? It's up to you. Or do you like neither? Well, it's up to you to choose.
Yeah. So in terms of time management,
yes.
How does time management get into work ethic?
Oh, sure. Let me give you some examples. Instead of telling you from books, I can tell you about the concrete experiences in Africa that I have encountered. Here in Africa, when you make an appointment with someone, they say, okay, we are going to see each other at 9 in the morning or 10, or the meeting is start at 10. The chance is the person will not show up at 10. And when they do not show up, they do not even apologize or say, oh, I'm sorry, they give excuses. Let me give you one example. I'm not going to mention name. I have a TV interview with a TV station. Okay, the host told me to come at 9 a.m. in the morning. I was there 8:30, half an hour before. I waited. She was not there yet. I thought, okay, there's only 8:30. She's going to come at 9. At 9, she did not come. I talked to the people, said, you just wait. She's coming. At 10, she also did not show up. Finally, I spoke to the manager about that, and she said, oh, she just said that she did not show up at all. I said, so what do you want me to do? I'm here for the interview. I said, oh, your interview will not be available today. They will reschedule. And I said, what's the problem? He said, well, she just called and she said that her grandmother died this morning and she could not come. I said, how come you did not tell me that? I said, oh, because she's very busy. I said, you cannot even write me a message or send me an email, or you give me a phone call, it lasts only less than 1 minute. Just say, I'm sorry, I cannot come, so come tomorrow, fine. But you let me, I waste all my time and energy, I prepare about all of this. I take the transportation all the way from another city, come all the way to you, now I have to go back. You waste a lot of my time, and not me that they don't even say, I'm sorry. They say, okay, fine, now you can go, you come back later, we will tell you when to come. Now, there's no self-responsibility.
Okay.
Just give you excuse, and that's the end. And that is okay. It's not just this case. In many other cases, people often do not start the meeting on time. People say, I do this, the chances they will not do this on time. That's why in Africa, for example, many of the projects, public projects proposed by the government, they never finish all those projects on time. It's always delayed, behind, getting behind. One good example is
okay, before you proceed, isn't the part of, we're talking about developments, maybe they are waiting to be funded? And
no.
maybe funds are no longer available?
Okay, here is another problem. It's about corruption too. I have first-hand about this because I interview many of these foreign companies. They do business in Africa. Here is what one of them told me. He said, doing business over here is frustrating because we come in, we have the agreement, we pay so-and-so already. But then when we come here, we pay all of this, but the workers they do not finish the job on time. But if they don't do the job on time, we are the person who suffer because we have to pay. Because you pay workers according to how long they work. So if they don't pay, if they don't finish on time, then you have a lot of problem for other people because that is a supply chain. Yeah. If you don't, there is a link. If these people does not do that on time, the rest will also suffer too because they depend on you to supply whatever you do. Yeah. Then they will stop because of you. Now, if they stop, then the other person also stop too. And all of a sudden, the whole project is behind schedule. And also, here is another thing too, is that the local population are very good in terms of giving you some excuses and ask you to have some more money to pay. Say, oh, the cost is more now because of this and this and this.
Yeah, so we have to increase because of inflation.
They always ask you for more money. And they give you 1,001 excuses and stories why they need more money. That means that your cost schedule is overrun. So in Africa, many of the projects, they are seldom finished on time. And then foreign companies, some of them suffer, they have to come in and pay more. And for another year. I mean, all this costs money. A good example is in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, many years ago, they tried to build a railroad or subway and all that for years. The project was behind schedule. Finally, the government asked the Chinese to come. They finished, not only they finished on time, they finished before time expiration. You see that? That kind of work ethics is not there in Africa. That's why in Africa, whatever you do, whatever is the rhetoric, the goal of the national government, that thing, I tell you now, has never achieved on time. It's always behind schedule. It has always had some problem. Yeah. And people, and also another thing about work ethics that I make a lot of observation over here. Here, people, they are not self-responsible. They do something, they promise something, they seldom do what they promise, but they do not apologize. They will give you excuses why they could not do it. Like the lady I told you, but many other excuses. So you have this kind of complacency, it's okay. If you ask and complain about them, they say, how come you are so nervous? It's okay. If we do not come, then we do not come in. Tomorrow it's also okay. Why are you so nervous, so stressed that it must be done today? If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then next week. It's life. Take it easy, man. This kind of mindset, very complacent. They don't have this kind of urgency. Deadline is deadline. Promise doesn't mean anything in Africa. Making promises in business or even in social organization do not mean anything. It's just a sugar. It's just a candy talk. You understand me? People don't do what they promise. It's just a sugar. But they don't do what they do. It's always behind schedule and always endless excuses. And that's, by the way, this has something to do, not necessarily bad, it's something good about Africa. Africa has a very rich oral culture, oral traditional storytelling. And that's why anthropologists are often very impressed. But in Africa, you have a lot of story that people tell. It's part of the culture. But they use that cultural richness now for the lack of work ethics. How do
they bring that into work ethic, the oral cultural history? Because
Africans are very good they are very good storytellers. The good thing about that is that sometimes I enjoy talking to black people in Africa because they entertain me. Especially when I'm dressed, I sit there, I talk to them, they make jokes with me. They tell me stories, tons of stories. They make them up, by the way. I really don't care if they're true or false, but they entertain me, you understand me? I just laugh together with them. They are very good about it. They are just too good about it. And that's why in the US, for example, you see a lot of black comedians. You understand me? Bill Cosby is a good one. He's a notorious one too, by the way. The black population are very good in dancing, in music, in art, in playing, in having fun. If you give them a job like that, they do very well. That's a good part of it. It's not bad. It's good. That's why you have many of them. They are so good in sport, in music, in dancing, in art, in comedy. You see that? Black comedy in America is also very famous. So it's quite well known too. And you go to the Caribbean. In fact, One of the things that I learned after living in Africa for a long time is that there are 3 H's.
Okay.
One H stands for humor. Blacks are just very good in joking around, in making humor, laughing, talking very loud, have funny conversation. It's not bad. I mean, it's part of life. But I'm just saying, if you focus too much on that, there is a weakness. There's a trade-off. The trade-off is that you will not do much of anything when you work, except all those things that you are good at. So there's a trade-off. The Chinese, on the other hand, they are not. If you go to America, for example, you have some Chinese or Asian American comedians, but there are not many of them. They are not as funny as the black comedians. They are much more popular. You understand me? So something in America, you see the NBA, in sport, in music, in boxing, blacks are very good, but you do not see too many Chinese or Japanese. They are very good in basketball or boxing. Have you seen any of them lately? No, many of the champions are not Asian American, they are black American. You see that there's a trade-off here.
Yeah.
You are good in something, but then if you focus too much, there's a trade-off.
Right. But of course, all this we are talking because you're saying we bring that excuses to work ethic.
Yes.
And tell me about that excuses that we bring to the work ethic because of how much we are endowed with storytelling. Do you have specific examples that you can?
Yeah, I want to give you one example that I learned in Brazil. Brazil is a Portuguese-speaking country in Latin America, in South America. It's a big country. I was there, I lived there too, and I remember that I spoke to some people, and one of them told me that in Brazil, you have a human right, the right to be lazy. Now, think about it. I was a bit surprised when he told me that. He said, here we have the right
to be lazy.
To be lazy. There's a human right. Now, I don't make value judgment on that.
Yeah.
If you go to China or Japan or South Korea, people don't talk like that. If you talk like that, people could be shocked and no one want to hire you because they know that you are not going to work. Everyone say, yes, I'm a very hardworking person. In a job interview, no one is going to say, hey, you know what, if you hire me, I want to make sure that you respect my human right to be lazy. No one is going to talk like that, right? No. If they ask you and say, yes, I'm very hardworking, yes, I do everything on time, I'm very serious. Of course, that's how you impress people who interview you for a job, right? But over there, and if you complain about someone who is not doing the work, and also in the US too, by the way, among those population, they will accuse you to be racist. You understand me? They will accuse you that how come you are so rude, that you are so insensitive, you don't care about human feeling, compassion, and all that. You understand me? Instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, I did not finish this work as I promised you last night. Okay, I try to do my best, I finish tomorrow morning, I promise. I'm sorry. They don't talk like that. Here in Africa, people don't talk like that. In fact, no one complains to you about anyway because everyone is doing that. Everyone knows that if you say you are going to do it tomorrow, everyone knows that you are not going to finish that tomorrow anyway. So no one is going to complain to you because they will be the next person who will behave like that too. Complaining like that about work ethics is not enforced. And people don't have the sense of self-responsibility. And that is a very serious issue in Japan or in China, in South Korea. People are just very serious. In the workplace, if you say you finish this project tomorrow at 9, you have to turn that in by 9 tomorrow. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. You want promotion? Oh yeah. When they come to you, make an evaluation about you, they say, this guy, he promised to finish it by 9, he did not do it. And they give a lot of excuses. You could be fired. In those countries, when you get fired, it's difficult for you to find another job because everyone knows about you, that you do not work.
Well, in public sector, mostly in this country, there's been some reforms that our government has been championing to change that mindset, to change that mind, because mostly people think in public you can't be fired because of not delivery. They will say, well, government doesn't fire people because when you are in government, you will retire or you go get your pension, then you go. And that, some people have said it has affected the output or delivery of issues that are happening in government and public sector in this country or elsewhere in Africa. Is that this?
That is a good point, but there's also a bad point.
Okay.
The good point is that can be a good solution too, in a way, because let me give you some example. I met some black people, let's say from the Caribbean, from Haiti or from Jamaica or from Nigeria, and they go to the US. And now they work in the US. I met some of them. I spoke to them. I noticed that when they come to the US, they learn that if you behave like that, you will lose your job. In America, for you to behave like that, you are not responsible, you come work late, you promise one thing, you don't do that, you will lose your job. So under pressure, some of them change their behavior. They become a bit more on time. They will say, if they don't do that on time, they will say, oh, I'm sorry. Now they say, I'm sorry to you, I apologize. I promise that I'm going to finish that on Tuesday, okay? So I can see that there are some change of behavior. Okay. Now, the bad point, I say good point and the bad point is the good part. The bad part, on the other hand, is that they are not well motivated.
Okay.
They only want money. When the money is gone, see, success in life, if you are motivated only by money, you do not go very far in life. Many of the most successful people in human history, they are driven by their own passion to do something like what I have done, not because of money. Even if you give them no money, they are driven to achieve that thing because that thing is so important to them in life. You give them money or no money, they drive to the very end. That is the passion that they want to do in life. But if you do that only because someone gives you money, you need that, and if the money is gone, then you are not working anymore. And that's why those people, when they behave like that, sure, they change, you know what? Their enthusiasm is very weak. It's only because of money. And you can even see that. They may come home, they may come to work at 9 on time now, but when they come to work, the passion is not there. They come to work, and the first thing that they do, they complain that they have to come so early because they say, I'm still sleepy. You understand me? Yes, they come only because they don't want to get fired, because there's money, motivation, but the mind is not on the job. When they work, they keep talking, making jokes, they're not really doing that much, but to avoid being fired, they just come on work on time now. But the mind is not there on the work. There's no this kind of passion, drivenness. I know some people, they want to do something in life. Even when they have nothing, they are driven to do it, and they become amazingly successful because they don't care about anything else. That's their life. That's what they do in life. That is the goal. They drive for it. You understand me?
Absolutely.
So successful in life for development, if you only depend on money, on your salary, how much do you pay me? When you talk like this, you cannot go very far in life. You will succeed. I'm not saying that you are not. You will get your job, but you will not go very far.
Remember, I'm having Professor Peter Baofu here in the studios, dishing out hard teachings, and I want to thank you sincerely, and pleasure having you in the studio.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
That's Professor Peter Baofu, my guest, and we've had a very candid conversation here, and I hope you've gotten 2 or 3 things from this conversation. My name is Emmanuel Thuwala. I've been your presenter in the Speak Out. Goodbye for now.